Happy September 3rd. So 4 years ago today, we got the call that I was officially declared cured and in remission at about 8 a.m. in the morning. It was still the middle of COVID. We still weren't going into the hospital for tests. I was getting all my blood work done virtually. And at 8:30 in the morning, we got a call that changed pretty much everything. And it's also Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. I get to kick off the beginning of Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month every year with the knowledge that on the third day of the month, I was declared cured of my cancer. So we're going to talk about cancer this month a lot. Over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to have 3 of my friends on this channel on Wednesdays talking about their diagnosis, because we get to see a lot in the media of little kids' cancer journeys, but we very rarely see the teens and young adults and the fallout of their cancer journeys. So this month, we're going to talk about it. So I hope you join me, and let's get into my journey with cancer. So I was diagnosed with a type of cancer called Burkitt's lymphoma. It is an incredibly aggressive form of cancer, and it is a B lymphocyte cancer. So it's a cancer of your blood cells. It's basically your white blood cells are attacking you. And I was diagnosed with stage 4 Burkitt's, which means I had cancer literally everywhere. Burkitt's likes to hide in your spinal column, in your brainstem. I didn't have cancer in my spinal column and brainstem. I did have cancer in my bones. And so I ended up with some pretty severe bone damage from my cancer. And that has become a whole other issue. But I also didn't have any of the symptoms, really, of Burkitt's before my diagnosis. I checked off all the pediatric cancer symptoms. I had some weird bone pain going on. I had some weird new lumps appearing. I didn't have unexplained weight loss, because as I was losing weight, that weight was being replaced by tumors, because Burkitt's doubles in size every 24 hours. I was having a couple eye issues. I was having abdominal pain. I was having headaches that weren't going away. And I was having a lot of pain in my leg. And if you've seen me nowadays, you know that I use crutches and I use a hinged knee brace. That is the leg that, starting in about February of 2019, actually, Feb 2019, that leg started to be a little bit sore. My leg hurt. And then in the end, I had a massive tumor that was stealing the blood supply away from my bone. Here's Franklin, which is the empty cavity in my leg. Yes, it's named. It's far more fun to curse at something when it has a name. And when you have an empty cavity in your leg, you name it. I know from friends, I'm not the only one that has named either their weird cancer thing or other, like, prosthetic or something. It makes it easier. It also means you have a lot of awkward conversations with people, but it does make it easier. The thing with Burkitt's is that there are 3 types, and I had spontaneous, which means it just randomly happens. And mine was found actually by my oral surgeon. I was getting my wisdom teeth out, and it was some weird jaw pain was going on top of the leg pain, and some weird stuff was showing up on x-rays of my wisdom teeth. And we thought I had a crazy infection. I was on antibiotics. And the day before I was supposed to get my wisdom teeth out, we went in to see my oral surgeon, and he talked to some colleagues, and they made the call that actually what was going to happen was he was just going to take out that one tooth. He was only going to touch that one tooth. And when he removed that one tooth, this side of my jaw was dissolved, which was insane to wake up from surgery with a drain in my mouth, draining what at the time we now know was tumor and bone fragments. At that point, we had no idea what it was. And I then had a very long 10-day waiting period for a biopsy result to come back. And in the end, it turned out to be this rare form of cancer that you don't find the way we found it. And I got to keep my other 3 wisdom teeth for 4 years. I think they only came out like a year and a half ago. Because turns out my wisdom teeth weren't the problem until they were the problem again. But at that point, they weren't the problem. It was actually the tumor. And what I don't talk about very often is that from here to here, I have almost no nerve. You can, on oral x-rays, you can see a nerve. It's weird. You can see the section of my nerve that's gone. You can see where it has been eaten away, which is creepy. But it also explains like the fact that my face is partially numb. And it just like sort of exists. Like I can feel this side and I can't really feel this side. And it's been like that now for over 6 years. So what actually is the thing with my leg, but also the thing with the shoulder and a couple other parts of my body? It is called avascular necrosis, which is tissue death caused by being starved of blood supply. They're also called an infarction. And if you watched House MD, you know that term because that is what House had going on in his leg, except what he had was a muscle infarction and what I have is a bone infarction. So basically what happened is my tumors stole the blood supply from my bones for so long that the bones themselves died. And I just have like empty cavities inside my bones, sort of. They show up differently on scans and x-rays now. It resulted in the ability for me to fracture my collarbone with a green stick fracture, taking off a jacket 1 year. It makes life interesting, and that's why I wear a hinged knee brace, because my infarction in my leg is just underneath my knee, and it's part of the whole protecting my knee thing, because if it was any higher, I'd need a knee replacement, but it's just low enough I don't need a knee replacement. And so to protect my knee, I wear a hinged knee brace pretty much all the time. And that doesn't prevent things like falls and stuff. I still fall on occasion because I have almost no feeling on the bottom of my feet from chemo. And so I do like catch my toes. Sometimes my knee will buckle, and that's always an adventure, but it does protect my knee more than just letting my knee be without a hinged knee brace. How did we get here? To start with, a lot of therapy. A lot of therapy. And then a lot more therapy. What no one considers with stage 4 cancer, and all the fallout I had is if you know me, or if you've been around here before, you'll know I have a traumatic brain injury caused by chemotherapy. And so I had to learn to write from the beginning. Like, how do you spell your name right from the beginning? And that is not easy. That's really hard. And so I spent a lot of time learning how to do that. And there are also some amazing supports in the cancer world. And I was lucky in the time I was diagnosed, because it was just before COVID. So I had a summer of meeting people in person at what at the time was Camp Ooch and is now Campfire Circle. And so I knew people. And then there are also resources like Beads of Courage, where I have 34 feet of beads, which is a couple hundred beads. And these are like every CT scan, every poke, every hospital transfer, every IV, every pint of blood. And as somebody who spent a lot of time unconscious but had a lot of PTSD afterwards, these were really important because it was a way to go, okay, like I have, this is the short string. This is the long string. So this is 30 feet. Like I survived all of this. Just by looking, I know what this section was. This was sepsis and ICU. There's the ICU bead, and every one of these red beads is a pint of blood or blood products. This is 24 hours. In 24 hours, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pints of blood products. They do amazing work. And I will leave a link to them down below, because they serve thousands of kids every day, and teens and young adults. And they're one of the few programs that don't cut you off at 18. I enrolled at, I guess I was 19 when we started the enrollment process, and they carried me through until I was really mentally in a place that I was okay. So I think I stopped somewhere in 2022, where I finally reached a point that I was like mentally okay again. And also my brain had gotten to a point where I wasn't losing sections of time anymore, because with the traumatic brain injury, I had periods where I would suddenly lose like 8 or 9 hours. And it took a long time before my brain was healed enough to stop losing as big of periods of time. And so these were really helpful in those early days when I was losing huge sections of time, because it's just a visual way. Rainbow, those are all therapy sessions. There are probably 200 plus rainbow beads from that first year and a half, 2 years post-cancer, at least. They do amazing work. Campfire Circle does amazing work. There are very few pediatric cancer charities that serve people past 18. Campfire Circle is one of those where if you were enrolled before the age of 19, they continue to run some adult programs until you're like 35, I think. So I get to go back every couple of years and see all my friends in person and spend a weekend attending sessions run by professionals in the industry about cancer and life after cancer and all that stuff. And not enough is said about charities like that that continue to serve the cancer world after cancer. But I think we should also talk about the brain injury. I think I sometimes don't talk about the brain injury enough, because at the end of the day, the brain injury is one of the biggest parts of my life still, and is one of the most frustrating parts of my life. To put it in perspective, I write for Goldspot. I write for Goldspot using a screen reader, using voice to text, or typing stream of consciousness, reading nothing I've written. And then Mum and I reviewing it, because I can't read. I am so lucky to be in a place now where when I get briefs from brands, 90% of the time they're in a PDF, and I can use a screen reader on them. That's a recent thing. If you got an email from me probably pre-2020, halfway through 2023, I'd say, guaranteed Maya wrote it. Guaranteed. I was probably sitting next to her while she wrote it, but guaranteed Maya wrote it. Because that's how long it took me to figure out how to write an email. And even then, I still have an email template, because that's a brain injury. A brain injury is that if things don't happen in a very specific order, my brain doesn't know what to do as the next step. And it's interesting to try and figure out how to function through life like that. I actually ended up keeping a clip in this season of 20 Questions from DC, because my brain stops. You can see the moment my brain stops. And one of my friends, who was also the guest on that episode, has to prompt me back on track, because I have aphasia. I can lose the ability to talk for anywhere from like 5 minutes to the upper end of the scale being a couple of hours. And it's always interesting. Brain injuries are never simple. And at the end of the day, I've learned how to cope with mine. I am so lucky to work with the brands I do, where when I have to DM them and say, hey, I thought too hard and I blew one of my pupils and now I've been in bed for 4 days. I'm going to have to push back the date of my content. Almost everyone's okay with that. And if they aren't okay with that, I don't work with them again. Because the reality is, if I think too hard, I can blow one of my pupils. That's the reality of brain injury for me. And that's just life after cancer for me. I think at the end of the day, I was so lucky to have survived my initial diagnosis, because a lot of people don't. At the same time, it has not been easy to get to this point. To get to this point has been so fucking difficult. And I think we don't talk about that enough, because I still take about 27 pills a day to be this functional.